Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously dramatic, high-stakes story of a desperate kingdom pushed absolutely to the brink. We're looking at a time when survival meant moving mountains, or rather, moving a whole kingdom right onto a mountain. I mean, think about it. What happens when a kingdom builds an impenetrable mountain fortress to guard its most sacred treasure, only to lose the whole shebang in a single night? That is the tragic irony of Yapahuwa. It was a brilliant but incredibly short-lived medieval capital in Sri Lanka, designed to be totally invincible, yet it fell almost as quickly as it rose. Section 1. A Kingdom in Crisis, the Desperate Flight South. So let's set the stage. Back in 1215, the brutal reign of a Tamil invader named Kalingamaga kicked off. The traditional northern capital of Polonnaruwa was captured, and its temples and irrigation works were literally shattered. This forced the Sinhalese kings to scramble south, setting up a new capital at Dambadenia around 1220. But, plagued by assassinations, rebellions, and just constant assaults, King Bhuvanekabahu I took the throne in 1272 and realized, okay, I need a true stronghold. So he urgently shifted the capital again, this time down to Yapahuwa. Section 2. Building the Impregnable Fortress. Engineering against the clock. Right, so in 1272, Bhuvanekabahu decides to transform this massive 300-foot sheer granite outcrop into the ultimate safe room for his kingdom. He built 3 concentric lines of defense that created an absolute kill zone. Any attacker coming from the plains, well, first they had to cross a broad, water-filled moat using these super narrow causeways, taking flanking arrow fire the entire time. Then they're staring down a massive outer stone wall, and finally a towering inner wall protecting the royal precinct mid-slope. Basically, a ground assault was nearly impossible. Now, you'll often hear people call Yapahuwa a mini Sigiriya, since they're both rock fortresses, but honestly, that's kind of misleading. Sigiriya, which was built 8 centuries earlier, was the sprawling pleasure palace. We're talking elaborate water gardens and beautiful frescoes. Yapahuwa was the exact opposite. It was a scaled-down, heavily fortified martial citadel on a narrow summit built purely for survival, definitely not for leisure. And that brings us to the fortress's most famous feature, this magnificent 3-tiered stone stairway. It served as this stunning spiritual gateway, but simultaneously, it was a deadly one-way military choke point. The steps go straight up at a brutally steep 70-degree angle. Seriously, imagine trying to do the Stairmaster in full armor while under enemy fire. It purposely forced enemies to climb in single file. Yet, despite being a death trap, it was beautifully decorated with intricate Makara or dragon balustrades and these elaborate butterfly lion guardian sculptures. It really represents the absolute zenith of 13th century Sinhalese stonework. Section 3. Life and the Sacred Relic, a bustling citadel. So what was this massive fortress actually protecting inside all those walls? The ultimate treasure, the Buddha's Sacred Tooth Relic. They built a special temple, the Dalada Malagawa, right at the summit to house it. You see, continuing the tradition, possession of the tooth is what legitimized royal authority. A king without it literally could not rule. So the fortress wasn't just guarding a physical item, it was protecting the crown itself. But here's a crazy fact. Yapahuwa wasn't just some isolated military bunker. Archaeologists actually excavated exactly 1,352 coins here. And we're not just talking local currency. This hoard included Chinese Song period issues. That proves this heavily guarded citadel was actually a surprisingly prosperous hub in the global Indian Ocean trade network. How wild is that? Just imagine the sheer sensory overload at the base of this rock. You've got this vibrant, bustling mix of garrison spearmen running intense military drills, coexisting right alongside peaceful, chanting monks in the lower cave temples, all while foreign merchants are actively trading local spices for exotic Chinese Celadon porcelains. It was a genuinely thriving capital. Section 4. The Sudden Fall, Devastation in 1284. Tragically, this golden age was incredibly brief. It ended abruptly with the sudden and kind of mysterious death of King Bhuvanekabahu in 1284. This created massive internal instability, leaving the fortress critically vulnerable. Almost immediately, a huge Pandyan army from India, led by Arya Chakravarti, capitalized on the chaos. They marched right across the island and laid a brutal siege on this now kingless, totally demoralized Yapahuwa. And guys, the speed of the collapse is just staggering. Despite all of Bhuvanekabahu's brilliant engineering, the sheer momentum and size of the Pandyan attack simply overwhelmed the outer defenses. They breached those water-filled trenches and earthen banks, violently pushing straight through those meticulously designed kill zones. Picture the desperate close-quarters combat here. The defenders are forced back, and the Pandyan forces literally storm right up that sacred 70-degree stone stairway. Just imagine the brutal hand-to-hand fighting as attackers force their way up those narrow, choke-point stairs under a desperate rain of arrows from the remaining garrison up above. In a totally heartbreaking climax, this supposedly impenetrable fortress falls in a single day. By nightfall, the invaders reach the summit, loot the royal palace, and, most devastating of all, they steal the Sacred Tooth Relic. The caskets are paraded out as a symbol of victory, and the relic is carried off to India. Without its divine mandate, the Sinhalese kingdom is plunged into years of absolute anarchy. Section 5. Rediscovering the Lost Capital. Echoes in the Stone. Stripped of the tooth relic, Yapahuwa lost its entire reason to exist. It was completely abandoned as a seat of government just 11 years after it became the capital. Over the centuries, the site just faded into a forgotten ghost town. It became a refuge for hermit monks, was dismantled for scrapped by Portuguese invaders in the 1500s, and was eventually completely reclaimed by the jungle. It literally lay hidden until the British colonial era in 1850, when modern archaeologists finally began to unearth its incredible layout, those hidden coins and exquisite carvings, eventually declaring it an archaeological reserve in 1935. Before we wrap up, I want you to note the original ancient name of this site, Subahapapta, which means Suba's Rock. It was actually named after an earlier Sinhalese commander who had first fortified it to resist invaders. That name perfectly encapsulates Yapahuwa's legacy as this ultimate symbol of desperate, heroic defense. And this brings us to a final thought for you to take away from this explainer. Yapahuwa was an architectural marvel, right? Built with sheer granite, moats, and choke points to be absolutely indestructible. Yet, it fell in a single day and was abandoned after just 11 years. So what does this tell us about where true security actually lies? It's a pretty powerful reminder that even the most brilliant physical walls and towering fortresses cannot save a kingdom when internal stability crumbles from within. Thanks for exploring the incredible, fleeting history of Yapahuwa with me.
Hey there, thank you so much for watching the Lankan Explainer. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Check out the rest of my channel for more content. See you next time.